Welcome to the Center for Universal Oneness. We are an open, welcoming, spiritual community that supports all faith traditions and invites you to join us on your spiritual journey. We host different speakers each week to guide and inspire us. We are guided by universal principles of acceptance of all that is sacred, and we strive to live in the oneness of love. Please enjoy this presentation.
The good news is that Aliza will be recorded. And for those of you who don't know, the website is chock full of previous recordings of other speakers, and Aliza will be there in the bundle. So you guys, today we have the beautiful and wonderful Aliza Bloom Robinson, who says there is no pathway to peace, that peace is the pathway. She is a transformational catalyst, an author, a speaker, and an ordained unity minister who does the voice of New Humanity Now. You can see the website, and I have a feeling that that'll be in the newsletter as well. So watch for that. If you have some curiosity, we'd like for you to go check it out. She has a number of books you get to see here. And I like the idea that not only is she willing to speak to us, but she's willing to, or has spent her life writing about it and expressing those ideas. And here is probably just a distillation of some of that. But so if you will, Aliza, please grace us with your ideas.
You may say I'm a dreamer, and I hope I'm not the only one. Oh my gosh, what a world we stand in. What a week we had, right? It's easy to forget that we are co-creators of our world. It's easy to not own it. It's easy to wonder about what's happening in the world. So I call you forth today. I call us forth to be today, to be the ones that continue to imagine, to continue dreaming, not to ignore what's going on, not to bury our heads and go, well, that's on the other side of the world, because the truth is we are one world. And if there's somebody that is hurting in the world, then we're all hurting. And if we're hurting in the world, the whole world is hurting. And it is time to quantum leap, to catapult, to pivot, to get beyond this illusion of separation that we live in. Because the truth is, everything we see out there in the world that is less than love or peace is an outcome of our collective belief in separation. Now, in New Thought, in unity particularly, but in New Thought, we say there is only one presence, one power active in the universe. We call it God, source, creation, spirit, universe. And it's good all the time. We say that every single person is an aspect of that. And we have not only the potential, but for the last 2 decades, I've been saying not only potential, but responsibility to wake up to that truth. We say that what we focus on is what we get, right? That's individual, but it's also collective. That's the law of mind action, or what I like to do now is the law of frequency, vibrational frequency. We say that prayer and meditation is our access point to God, source, spirit, creation, but only in a particular way, actually. And our 5th principle is put it into action. It's like if you sit on your meditation cushion all day long and you never engage with the world, that's fabulous. But most of us don't have that opportunity. Most of us are called to be in the world. So as Mark said, I like to say, well, one of my books, and I kind of highlighted it a little bit, it's called The Paradox of Awakening, Finding Peace in a World of Chaos. I took this on a book tour through about 15 or 18 Unity churches a couple of years ago. Actually, it's now been 3 years ago, which is hard to believe, but I don't know if we're much better off than we were. But what if we are? But one of my favorite lines out of that book, and yeah, I did write it, so that's a little weird to say, but one of my favorite lines in that book is there is no pathway to peace. Peace is the pathway. Thank you, Kyle. That's awesome. There is, think about that. Just let that land, let that like disturb you a little bit. There is no pathway to peace. That means from where we are to where we want to be, there is not a stepping stone. There is not an open path, but because peace is the pathway, right? Peace is the pathway, which means that when we become peace, when we align with peace, when we embody peace, when we vibrate the frequency of peace, when we see peace, and most of all, again, when we be peace. Now, we might think peace is the absence of war, but that's not really peace. Peace, when we, let's say this, you may think you're a peaceful person, but turn a mirror into your brain and turn a microphone into how you speak to yourself on a daily basis. Is it peaceful? Is it loving? 100% of the time. Turn your mirror and your microphone into your thoughts as you watch the news. Or this week in Arkansas, as you track the weather. We're finally above 30 degrees today after about 5 days. Now that's not that horrible really for Arkansas, except for Rob and I, my husband and I are allergic to anything below 70 degrees. So we've been struggling. We have felt iced in. Well, we were iced in, but could we find peace in that? Or did we fight it? I'm not going to answer that question, right? Because it's really about you asking yourself the question. So this week with Ukraine, with Russia, holy Toledos, who thought that would happen again? Who thought? What do we do with that? How do we make sense of it? How do we even navigate through the emotions that come up when we contemplate those things, right? So you take it deeper. Well, so a couple of things happened this week. Last January, which was only last month still for a couple more days, I spent the month with James Twyman in Namaste Village, which is in Ajijic, Mexico, which is Lake Chapala area south of Guadalajara. James Twyman has been known for many years as the global peace troubadour. So when this started ramping up a week or two ago, a couple of weeks ago, I guess, he said, I'm going to Ukraine and we're going to do a global peace meditation. Now, as it turned out, they weren't letting any Americans in, so he couldn't go. But there was, there's an organization called Unify.org that does some amazing work. Maybe somebody could put that in the chat. Unify.org. You can look that up later. And so there were global meditations, there was coherence work, there was synchronization of meditations, there was so many things, and not just that organization. The other organization, thank you, Barb, the other organization that I work with is a quantum frequency device, and our founder of that is Marcus Schmicke. He's a German. He is a quantum scientist, and he's also a monk. He spent 10 years in India as a monk. So he has this beautiful weaving of science and spirituality. And part of what we do there is we have a little device and we can run frequencies, and we ran globally. I was on the live stream with Marcus for 30 minutes. Well, actually it runs for an hour, but for 30 minutes we were live streamed on Tuesday afternoon last week, and we were running the program called Coherence. And coherence, like think heart math, right? Where you get your brain and your heart in coherence, and your whole body system changes and opens up, and life works better. Your body works better. Stress hormones drop and feel good hormones kick up. This coherence program is not only heart-brain coherence, but it's like cellular coherence. And so we were doing this work together. There were over 1,500 people on that particular live stream thread, which I thought was pretty cool. And there were other threads that were going on, so I don't have the total numbers. And what Marcus does, because he plays in quantum science, is he was talking about the quantum entanglement of all of us in coherence together. Oh, that gave me chills, gave me body chills. Now he's in Germany, he's not far, he's kind of front lines, not exactly front lines, not Russia or Ukraine, but we were doing this for peace. We were doing this for resolution. We were doing this for the world to come back, maybe for the first time, into a coherent place, into a place where more people than not believe, know, live from a place of oneness. Now, in New Thought, we sort of look at oneness as the end all be all, but the truth is, as the world is changing, and it's changing very, very quickly, as the world is changing, more and more of us are experiencing oneness, if not 24/7, more often than not. And that's like the tipping scale. That's like the tipping point when more of us are staying in oneness, is staying in peace, staying in love, the world will tip or leap or burst into what we call a new humanity, which is the experience of oneness. But then oneness is the starting point, the new normal. From oneness, we go into this experience of allness. Can you feel the difference? Like when we are one, that's pretty cool, but it also gets pretty mental right now. So when we are one, then we lean in to allness. So there are so many people holding peace, praying peace, being peace. Is that enough? Well, we don't know yet, do we? But I follow this girl named Heather Cox Richardson, who gives a pretty non-political, non-biased report on the politics of the world. That's a funny statement, isn't it? But it's pretty neutral. It's pretty fact-based. It's not filled with emotion like so many of the other reporters that we get. And she said this morning, I think she wrote it last night, that we're in a paradigm shift. The paradigm is about to shift because Ukraine did not fall. Why didn't Ukraine not fall? Now, I'm not discounting that it's pretty scary over there. I'm not discounting that. I'm talking to those of us who are here primarily in the United States right now. We are safe. You don't have this same conversation if your own house is being bombed, right? If your own house is being bombed, if the fighter jets are coming and that chaos and that fear is right there in your yard, you have a very different conversation. But the rest of us, we can land and hold the space of peace. So Revealing World, Charles, oh no, I want to share this story. Let's see. Yeah, I want to share this story. There's a story of many years ago, like 16th century or something like that. A king commissioned a painting. He offered a prize to the artist who could paint the best picture of peace. Many artists tried, and the king looked at all the pictures, but there were only two he really liked, and he had to choose between them. The first one, this is the one we all like, was a picture of a calm lake. The lake was a perfect mirror. Peaceful, towering mountains were all around it. Overhead, the blue sky had light, fluffy white clouds. It was a perfect picture of peace. There was probably even a white dove flying through the clouds. The other picture, however, it also had mountains, but they were rugged and bare. And above, the sky was an angry sky from which rain fell and in which lightning played. Down the side of a mountain was a waterfall that tumbled fiercely. This did not look peaceful at all. It looked chaotic. It looked dark. But when the king looked, he saw behind the waterfall a tiny bush growing in the crack, growing in a crack in the bush. In the bush, the crack in the rock, sorry. In the bush, a mother bird had built her nest. And there, in the midst of the rush of angry water, of lightning, of clouds, of dark. There's probably wind, torrential winds. But in the midst of all this sat the mother bird on her nest in perfect peace. Which picture do you think won the prize? The king chose the second picture. But you know why? When asked, he said, because peace does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, no trouble, or hard work. Peace means to be in the midst of all those things and still be calm in your heart. That is the real meaning of peace. And aren't we in that torrential storm as a world right now? Can we find, can we land in that place of peace again and again and again? The more you do it again and again and again, the easier it gets to remember and the longer you could stay there for any given moment. Charles Fillmore, who's our co-founder in Unity, wrote a book called The Revealing Word. Many of you know that. The metaphysical meaning of peace is harmony and tranquility derived from the awareness of the Christ consciousness. The way, until world peace is based on the divine law of love, and this law incorporated into the pact of peace, as well as into the minds of those who signed the pact, there will be no permanent peace. Until world peace is based on the divine law of love, there will be no permanent peace. You won't find peace by fighting for it. Kind of the same as there is no pathway to peace. You cannot fight for peace. It is absolutely impossible to fight for peace. Jesus gives us an example in Mark 4 when he stills the storm. He's asleep. The disciples are rowing the boat and a storm comes. He's out in the middle of the lake and they're worried and they're terrified. And they're like, don't you care about us? What's going on? We're gonna die. And I can imagine it a little bit different than it's related in the Bible. I can imagine it that these 12 disciples are just having a fit and he's still sound asleep. And they finally go shake him and they go, Master, wake up. We're gonna die. Don't you even care? And he rolls and he stretches and he looks up at him and he sits up and then he stands up and he says, oh, have I taught you nothing yet? Why do you be so scared? And he walks up to the front of the boat and he stands, arms open wide, right? The very bow. Now picture Titanic, right? And the two main characters out there. He's like that. It wasn't a big boat. It was a tiny little boat. And he opens his arms and he says, he commands the storm, the water, peace, be still. And the winds quit and the waters calmed. And disciples freaked. Who is this? But if the disciples represent, as they do in New Thought, our different powers, different aspects of our consciousness, our emotionality, if you will, and the storm represents any storm going on in the world, that Christ consciousness, which is the awareness of the presence of God in whatever form, whatever language you use, it doesn't matter the name or the title or the language. But if you can feel yourself in the midst of that storm, feel yourself as a disciple on this boat thinking you're going to capsize and die, because sometimes those storms feel like it, and you can stop, center, feel your feet on the ground, come into your heart space. That's the work. And say, peace, be still. To your own storm, to your own monkey mind that's running amok, to the own noise, to the noise that's in your own mind, but also space. Stop. Be still. And you can land in this point of stillness. And I promise you, it's already there. It's just the noise of the world that's keeping you from that awareness. You will not find peace by fighting for it. So how do you find peace? Well, I just gave you one method. You call it forth. You call it forth. Now, if I stand here in my room in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, and I look at Russia and I say, peace be still, that may or may not cause Putin to back down. I mean, I don't know, hasn't worked yet, but I'm not giving up, right? But if I can find it in me first, and I can hold and I can be peace in my body, in my mind, in my heart, my soul, then I become the pebble, right? The pebble in the pond. Like if I can be peace in my house, if I can join in heart and mind and soul and consciousness with hundreds of thousands of people across the world, right? In global synchronizations, in coherence meditations, in thought, in word, in deed. My global consciousness group, which I'm a part of, which is really people from all over the globe, from anyway, every country of the globe, we were also doing some work this week. And what if that work actually does cause a tipping point in the world? What if that work actually does create a miraculous outcomes? That's one of my favorite places to play. Miraculous outcomes to me is the ability to calm the peace, or to calm the storm in my own being. Miraculous outcomes for me is trusting that there is something way bigger than me that is bringing me something way bigger and better than I can even imagine. Miraculous outcomes can be the tiny little things. It can also be the mass global little things. The first time I started playing with the idea of miraculous outcomes was a few years ago, just over 2, I think, when Australia was having those horrendous fires, like the whole country was burning up. Do you remember that? And people were praying for rain, and people were praying to, for cool weather, and people were praying for all kinds of things. But inside the context of our global consciousness groups, we just started holding for miraculous outcomes. We don't know the good that's going to come out of this. We're not denying, we're not denying the pain and the fear and the agony and the distress that people there were going through. We were never denying that. And I tell you, it was only about a day later, once we did this whole global work, we planned this really, and global isn't even the word, we planned this really universal scale. Like we line up together and we go, what's possible? And we just go, oh, it's miraculous outcomes. We don't know what it looks like. We're not going to design it or create it. We're just going to allow it and line up with it and be it. It wasn't a day later that there started to be pictures on my Facebook feed of new grass growing, of animals being found, of animals helping, different species of animals helping each other. Those were miraculous outcomes. Now, I actually don't even know what happened to end the fires, but those were the miraculous outcomes. And when I hold that, and when I stand there, and when I hold that consciousness, you see what happens. It's like I get out of my own way. I get out of my own limits. I get out of my own thinking it needs to look any particular way. What if we're doing that? Miraculous outcomes in this Russia-Ukraine thing. I was noticing on Facebook this morning, all the yellow-blue images, all the flag and the sunflowers, which is their national flower. I was noticing, and reading some material about how I think it's the president or prime minister, I forget now, of Ukraine. There's like we'll get you out of there. He's like, I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. Standing there in the streets. We are not giving into this. We are not standing down. And the other thing I read about that, which I thought was pretty miraculous already, and we have work to do, was that Russia thought they were going to take it like within moments or days, and it didn't happen. And so now they don't even have their supplies because they didn't have that all set up. And I'm thinking there is something really, really cosmically big is happening here. And the more that we be the peace and more we surround and enfold that whole country, both countries, with peace, the more that we know that love will prevail, that love has to prevail. Because what we know is for the last decade at least, and maybe much, much longer, we've been on the cusp in consciousness of moving out of separation into oneness, of moving from this war and fighting and lack and disease into allness. We are consciousness for this planet. We need to do this. And we are so close to the tipping point. And this might be the thing that tips us over. So that was one. So 4 really other things. One is trusting God, trusting God, trust that there is something bigger than what we can see going on. That this too will ultimately work together for a greater good. Care for the people who are impacted. Care for those you know in your life who are struggling and suffering. Care for them with kindness and compassion. Line up your frequency. Land in that place of love and peace and coherence as often as you can. Because every single time you do, our system on a biological self, our biology shifts so that we can recalibrate back to wholeness. That happens in ourselves every time we land in coherence. It happens collectively in the world. It happens in this group. Every time we line up together for a greater good, there is magic that happens. And it's way more than the sum of the parts, if you will. Third one, of course, is read my book, Paradox of Awakening, Finding Peace in a World of Chaos. That hopefully will be in your newsletter as a link, Amazon link, but it's on Amazon. Finding peace in a world of chaos. What more do we need to do? Or Burn with Peace. This is a poem from John Riddell, and this is the other slide, Kyle. I'm going to read it. John Riddell has shown up recently in the last year or less, and he's this amazing, brilliant poet. I'm going to read this. We're going to leave that slide up while I read the whole thing. Just feel it. It's entitled Burn with Peace. I can't make the world peaceful. I can't stall tanks from roaring down roads. I can't prevent children from having to hide in bunkers. I can't convince the news to stop turning war into a video game. I can't silence the sound of bombs tearing neighborhoods apart. Oh, feel the pain. I can't turn a guided missile into a bouquet of flowers. I can't make a warmonger have an ounce of empathy. I can't convince ambassadors to quit playing truth or dare. I can't deflect a sniper's bullet from turning a wife into a widow. I can't stave off a country being reduced to ash and rubble. I can't do any of that. The only thing I can do is love the next person I encounter without any conditions or strings. To love my neighbor so fearlessly that it starts a ripple that stretches from one horizon to the next. I can't force peace on the world, but I can become a force of peace in the world. Because sometimes all it takes is a single lit candle in the darkness to start a movement. Lord, make me a candle of comfort in this world. Let me burn with peace. John Riddell. That is such a powerful, I think it was maybe even Kate's on this call. Maybe it was even Kate that shared that. I saw it on Facebook several places. It's such a powerful call for us to do what is ours to do. And you can do it in a million ways. You can do it by lighting your own candle, by being your own force for peace. You can do it by holding a greater miraculous outcome. Like, can you imagine maybe in a year from now, maybe in a month from now, that something tipped in the world power and the bully disappears from our planet? Now that bully can be, right, a person, a dictator, a thing, but that idea of bully suddenly has no more power, because we have stood in the face of our deepest fears and said, no more, no more. We are better than this. We are bigger than this. You can imagine, you can look at one of those pictures of Ukraine. You can look at any one of those and you can go, I call for from my place of peace. Like, let yourself be touched. I'm not saying don't be touched. Let yourself be touched. Let your heart be broken first, right? Because we have to activate that emotion in order to release it, right? We can't bury it. When you thought we're really good about burying and denying that we have the new emotion. Oh, no, I'm fine. It's like, oh, yes, right? Stop. I'm hurting. This hurts my soul. But from that place, just like that poem, from that place of agony, there is one thing I can do. I can't force peace onto the world, but I can become a force of peace in the world. Or in the words of another poem I saw this week, a poem by Anne Weems. She says, I no longer pray for peace. I pray for miracles. It's a much longer poem, but I love that line. I no longer pray for peace. I pray for miracles. I would tweak it again. And I would say, we're not praying for peace or miracles or love. We are being the prayer, peace. We are pray peace. We are pray love. We are pray miraculous outcomes. Let's take these thoughts into time of meditation. Let's take a deep breath in. Close your outer eyes. If you have your eyes open, you see the Ukraine national flower on the screen, but then close your eyes. And the word on it is pray peace. I can't force peace, but I can become a force of peace. There's not a pathway, because peace is the pathway. We're going to take a few moments to just really land into our bodies, to feel your awareness shifting from the outer to the inner, from your mind to your body, from your body to your being. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your connection through the ground to all that is. Notice when you connect your feet to the ground, it is as if you become aware of the roots of your soul that stabilize you, that quiet you, that still you. And let that awareness of the stillness move up through your feet, your legs, your hips, your torso. Let it move down your arms, open your palms and feel peace, feel stability, feel awareness in the palms of your hands. Let the same awareness move up through your neck, your head, your face, your brain. And let it rise up from the crown of your head. And through the crown of your head, bring your awareness all the way up to the sun. And just connect your crown to the sun. When we know we are connected to the sun and the earth, connected to something that is so much greater than us, we can relax. We can soften our own defenses, our own hard edges. And we can begin to sink into our heart space. And there we find peace. Breathe peace. Activate peace. Remember a peaceful moment if it helps. And in your heart space, activate love, for peace and love go hand in hand. You cannot have peace without love. So activate that love. Recall a moment that you were in deep, deep, deep love. Maybe the first time you saw your grandchild or met your spouse or saw a sunset or held your pet. And let that fill your heart. And let it overflow your heart and fill your torso. And let that overflow your body and fill your room. That peace, that love, that calm. And then feel your field connecting with the field of every other person here on this Zoom or watching the recording. There is an activation when we join together in consciousness. There's a quantum burst of peace, of love, when we connect our own field with others who are in the same field. And then we expand it. Simply by awareness, we just simply expand. We don't send, we just expand it. Expand it. That it fills, surrounds our country, our continent. And then bring the image of Russia and Ukraine, their whole continent. Bring it right into the center of our field of peace. And feel this power that we stand in, that we are in right now, reigning over every single person in both countries and everywhere in the world. And feel it bringing exactly what is needed, because we don't need to decide. Feel it bringing comfort, a breath of relief, dissipating fear, activating resolve. Surrounding, embodying, enveloping peace, love. Peace and love together create the opportunity for miracles, for miraculous outcomes. Imagine a world that works for all people, a world where every country and every person is sovereign into their own being, where there is enough, where love and kindness and compassion are the foundations for being on the planet, where innovation and beauty and creativity and collaboration become the things we put our time and energy and money and resources into. Imagine. Imagine a world where we all live as one. You may call me a dreamer. I hope I'm not the only one, because I see it and I feel it. And I invite you to join me and hundreds and thousands and millions of others who are holding this as a possibility. We're going to expand it one more time, circle right around and receive it for yourself. I am peace. I am love. I choose peace as my pathway. And so it is.